Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome, Commissioner. So this morning, in her speech, Ursula von der Leyen underlined that the European Green Deal is very much at the heart of the new Commission's strategy. She talked about that clear sense of direction that the climate law proposal unveiled yesterday would give, and she described it then as our compass for the next 30 years, offering predictability and transparency to industry and investors. Frans Timmermans, the Executive Vice President, said it would be a clarion call to other countries, an open challenge to others to try to beat us, he said. Discussing all of that with our panel in this session on implementing the Green Deal in partnership with industry. I am particularly delighted to welcome our keynote speaker, Kadri Simson, who is the Energy Commissioner, of course. She is going to make a short keynote speech, and then she will join our panel, and I'll bring the rest of the panel up to join us. So, Commissioner, thank you so much for being here, and over to you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Energy and industry have always been at the heart of Europe. The European coal and steel community helped Europe come out of the trauma of the Second World War and grow into a stronger, more integrated region looking towards the future. The Euratom community was created after the Suez crisis, and then the single energy market was a response to Europe's energy security and competitiveness concerns. It was the basis for what was eventually become our energy union. Now, we are at the dawn of a new era. Our newest challenge is the changing climate. Our task is not only to react and prevent a dramatic environmental crisis, but to transform this challenge into an opportunity for growth. And this is the essence of the European Green Deal. Again, in this new chapter of Europe's story, energy and industry will play a lead role. So today, let me tell you about 4 issues at the forefront in the new area, each leading us to a more competitive industry in Europe. And first of these is hydrogen, an energy source that promises so much potential for Europe. In the context of the Green Deal, it ticks the boxes we need. It is an alternative source of energy that is versatile and clean. It can be used to decarbonize sectors that cannot be electrified, to store energy, or as a feedstock for industry. Hydrogen can help us move to a more resource-efficient and resilient energy system. By June, we will put forward a strategy on smart sector integration, including ideas on how hydrogen can play a role in future energy system. The potential we see with hydrogen is not only limited to how clean it is a clear opportunity for some industrial sectors to embrace the energy transition and remain competitive. We are just at the beginning of our understanding and usage of hydrogen, and history shows us that those who act first gain significant competitive advantages. So imagine European industry not only using hydrogen, but being the leaders in its usage across the globe when the rest of the world adopts. We are on the cusp of this opportunity now. Second, I want to talk about the renovation wave. One of the biggest culprits of waste is buildings, which accounts for almost 40% of our carbon emissions as we speak. Right now we are renovating energy inefficient buildings at an annual rate of 1%. And if we continue at this speed, reaching our 2050 targets is not a realistic goal. So stepping up the ambition here is not a nice to have, it is a must. We are tackling the problem head on with a renovation wave and creating factory-based building components to feed into this renovation combines this new greener approach to energy with boosting our industry. Less labor intensive, more efficient, higher quality components for a lower price, and a boost to our industry that is creating by matching the demand for the new higher innovation ambition. Third, I want to touch up on the energy efficiency first principle. We must become much more energy efficient, as the cleanest and cheapest energy is the energy we don't use. It's also about correctly using the waste we produce. Waste heat is a perfect example. Use it or lose it should be our mantra. If we choose the former, our efforts need to be focused on two aspects: access and regulation. For industry to make a good use of district heating networks, you need access. And to get access, you need the right regulatory environment to provide it. If we achieve both, we have a cost-effective way to reuse waste energy, one that could be financially beneficial to our homegrown industry. And fourthly, finally, the European Union accounts for only 9% of our global emissions. We must convince other global big players and big carbon emitters to follow our example. So it is time to step up a gear in our external energy relations. Europe is leading the clean energy transition. Today, EU manufacturers account for at least 41% of the global installed capacity of wind turbines, and we will be scaling up even further, meaning new equipment, new infrastructure, new value change. Just as I saw a few weeks ago in Denmark, this opens the door to more jobs and growth for European industry. We should see our leadership as an export opportunity. That's why I'm investing in our bilateral energy dialogues and relations from the US to Asia to Africa to export our energy standards, rules and technologies to partner countries. Yesterday, together with the climate law, the Commission has also announced the launch of the impact assessment on a carbon border adjustment mechanism to safeguard the EU economy from unfair competition and promote further green efforts by our partners. And I believe this can be an important element of a just energy transition which preserves a level playing field. Ladies and gentlemen, a part of my role as Energy Commissioner is to help industry to find the most cost-effective way to produce and use green energy, and to help industry thrive while doing so. The European Green Deal means a profound change in our energy system, but if we look back once again to the story of the European coal and steel community, there is one lesson to take away. It's that by pooling our resources and efforts, significant positive change is possible for industry in Europe. And if it was possible before, it will be possible again. So now I'm very much looking forward for the panelists and their opinions, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Indeed, Commissioner, and please do come and join me. And let's bring up our panel straight away to get into that conversation. I'm delighted to welcome Saori Dubourg, who is a member of the Board of Directors at BASF. A very warm welcome to you, Saori. Emma Marcegaglia, President of ENI. Welcome, Emma. Welcome back to Business Europe. Fredrik Persson, President of Swedish Enterprise SN. And Maciej Witucki, President of the Polish Confederation, Lewiatan. A very warm welcome to all of you. I'll give you a moment to get comfortable. As before, ladies and gentlemen, I've asked our panel not to make any opening remarks. We're going to dive in. I have some questions for them, and then I will come out to you. So, let us jump straight in. Saori, you were listening to the Commissioner, and she was talking there about transforming the challenge into opportunities. And we heard this morning how important it is that we take account of all the elements of sustainability, so not just the social and economic, but also environmental. And Commissioner, there was some concern this morning that in the early days of this Commission, a lot of emphasis on the social and the environmental and less on the economic. But Saori, from your perspective, if we're to tackle sustainability in a way that delivers for prosperity, people and planet, what are the key challenges? Same question to you all.
Yeah, thank you very much, first of all, for the speech. And let me start by saying the following. I mean, the Green Deal is an obligation for building trust, not only for politicians, but also for economy. And I can only express from our view, I think the deal will be only successful if we tackle the challenges jointly. So for me, at the heart of this is how can we collaborate to bring this in very concrete roadmaps for solutions and bring it in a clear action mode of what are the investment needs, what are the infrastructure needs, energy grid, what is the energy mix of the future, what do we need to think about, what can industry bring in terms of technology and innovation, how can this be incentivized, and how can this be linked to concrete business cases. This is just one angle to it. What I really appreciate is it's a way forward, and what we as industry have to acknowledge, this is not an incremental move, this is a transformational, it's a big move, and it requires from us also thinking bigger. So, from my view, I think regarding energy, there is a very big openness. I think what we would need to do on an energy piece to really go industry by industry and first understand how big are the transformational needs, for example, in relation to CO2. Yeah, what does it really take in terms of quantity? Let me give you an example of the chemical industry. This means for us, for example, 10 times the infrastructure in renewables compared to today. And here we have a joint challenge. It means how to transport energy, how to make sure that this is in a ballpark globally, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it means investing in R&D technology and so on. And the social dimension, I mean, we will come to that later.
Come back on that a bit later on if we might.
Because there are tools to tackle that as well.
Okay, super. Lots to talk about. Emma Marcegaglia, welcome back, as I say.
Thank you.
President of Business Europe. It's great to have you back with us. Your take on the most important challenges, particularly from the perspective of an oil and gas major.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. So, from an energy company, first of all, I want to say something which is sometimes forgot. For us, the challenge is not only this, but there are two challenges. The first is, of course, to reduce the GHG emission. And maybe you have seen, as Eni, we have presented our strategy plan to 2050, where we will reduce by 80% our GHG emission. And this is, for us, is not just, we are doing this because the public opinion is doing this, is pushing us. We started in 2014 to think about it. And this is an integrated industrial strategy. First, this is the first challenge, but the other challenge is also to give access to energy to 1 billion people without any access to energy, and we still have 2.7 billion of people in Africa where they just use, biomass to cook, and sometimes, women and children are killed by that. So we have to put together these two things. In our opinion, the Green New Deal it's a good move. I want to say this very clearly. It's a good move. We appreciate this move. We think this is also a way to give a mission to this commission. But as it has been said, we need to move in a very pragmatic way. We have to implement this in a very good way. I think it's very important that we put a strong focus on companies, or what companies are doing, what are the skills of the company, and it's very important to put also a lot of attention on technology. We need to develop technology. Without technology, we will not do it. The other thing I want to underline, it's very important that the Green New Deal will not come up with more more regulatory red tape, more protectionism, more closing the market, more things that will not help the competitiveness of business. So if we work together, if we collaborate, if we really go together, as Saori said, I think we are talking about such a big challenge that the only way to win is to work all together. So companies have to take responsibility, the Commission, the national government, university, public opinion, we have to work together. If we work together well, and we are very pragmatic, we don't just, go for, the push of public opinion, but we do certain and serious things, I think we can win. But pay attention not to have more burden on the companies, otherwise we will not be able to, to commit and to
and that working together, which you've both stressed, of course, the Commission President said this morning, she wants this to be done by co-design, by co-creation, with all of you working together. Come back on how to make that work, if we might, in a little while. But Fredrik, from your perspective, and very much underlined all day, it's business that delivers this transition. How do you see the challenge ahead? Are we focusing on the right things? Do you think we need a change of emphasis?
I think the first thing to note with the Green Deal is that now actually business, in terms of Business Europe and the different federation, now we have the same ambition, i.e. net zero 2050. So thanks for that. And just picking out one thing, I said it's extremely important that I think we cannot pick parts of this. We need prosperity, people and planet. And the key here is, of course, how can we combine decreasing emissions, but at the same time keeping growth? My fear would be that if we cannot deliver on that combination, we might actually lose the Europeans seeing prosperity falling back. So that is, I think, key for us to be able to deliver on both, definitely.
And that a key issue which has already come up today, which I would like to come back to, this question of bringing public acceptance of what needs to be done and the sense that it's being done, and we've already had a lot of stress that it's being done in a just, in a fair way. So lots to talk about there, but complete the picture for us, Maciej, in terms of how you see the challenge ahead.
Well, so I think first element, which is good news, is that we see since this morning a very good alignment and the positive energy. So all the commissioners, the president, they all speak the same language, and we, by the way, speak quite a close language, so it's a good news. Because for many other reforms we have seen in Europe for many years, I'm quite old already, we've seen this disalignment which killed the initiative. So that's a good news. Second element, we have a social pressure. And that's a good element as well. And let's pay tribute also to Al Gore, because it's not only Greta. People have been speaking about it years ago. We didn't hear them. Now here it is. We follow them. Now the challenges, I think it's to be, for us business, to be as concrete, as focused as the politicians and activists are. Because today, with all respect, my opinion is the activists, they are very clear. The politicians, we've seen a very much alignment. Thank you, Madam Commissioner. But we business, we have to be as well very focused and very prepared and very proactive. We should not wait until the Parliament votes something tomorrow or 3 months or 6 months. Business Europe has to come. We have already the 3 Ps. Now we have to go more concrete. Because we see the energy of the Commission. Let's embrace this energy and let's go together, convince the, well, maybe not the activists, but at least the members of the Parliament, to vote something which will be, I would say, concrete, but also helpful for the business, not only oriented into a kind of eventual naive vision of the Green Deal. So I think our point now, be concrete, prepare the points, be proactive, don't wait for the laws to criticize them, but be proactive because before they be voted, especially that we have a positive momentum with the Commission. So we have to come with business case, validate them together, and then using the Commission and the governments of our member states, convince the majority of the parliamentaries to vote good laws.
And Maciej, how well do you think that collaboration, that working together is working now? Can we improve it still further to make sure that it genuinely is co-creation of solutions?
Well, again, it's not because we have a commissioner at the table. I think it's the overall climate with the Commission is very good, and we've seen it from the very morning. Now it's our job, job of our associations, of our companies, of Business Europe, to come proactively with Excel spreadsheets. Because again, if we stay with the ideas of the Green Deal, we may have a very green graveyard of European industry. It will be very green, but eventually not satisfactory for our members. It will not happen, I'm sure. But again, bringing numbers, bringing very concrete euros also at the table, and dates. Otherwise, we will be overpassed. Again, I don't want to criticize them. It's their job. We'll be overpassed by the activists. They will tell not 2050, 2040. We already know that 2050 is a challenge. But if we do nothing, if we don't come with arguments to convince the members of the parliament, those are the people who will vote later on. So we have to give them rational elements to somehow find the solution which is reasonable for both parties. And I'm sure that we have all those elements in this very room.
Before I come back to the Commissioner, any other thoughts from our industry representatives on this? You talked about collaboration. I know you are working, Saori, on a collaborative initiative in relation to accounting, I believe. Perhaps you could say 2 words about that and what you think is key to effective collaboration. Emma, Fredrik as well, your thoughts on how well it's working and how much better it could be to have genuine co-creation. And then, Commissioner, I'll come back to you to react. Saori.
Yeah, so first of all, we are very thankful that the EU Commission granted us the collaboration on developing jointly the green accounting. And this is a contribution where industry can be really transformational in a way that we have more than 250 companies. We work together with the global coalition that also includes SASB and IFRS. And what we are doing right now is we will not change the financial accounting, but there is work on how to add to the balance sheet of the future a chapter 2A to B, where we can show what kind of purchasing parity are we generating as companies, and how much, for example, on the environmental field, how much capex does every company invest in future technologies? Because today, what many industries suffer from, and it's irrespective whether they are already seen as green or not, lots of us have huge investment needs in order to get the Green Deal done and financed. Today, in the balance sheet, it's deducted from our profit.
Yeah.
And we do not get any reward at the stock market. So if we can make it visible what kind of capex cash flow long-term is built up as positive goodwill for the future, it will help to finance the Green Deal via industry. It will help a lot of industry players who suffer from these challenges on stock markets.
And it will help policymakers to see more
Absolutely.
clearly the impact of what they're doing.
And I would like to support what Emma said. This is a market-driven, tool. It's using capital market power instead of just tax, because what is very clear, neither the EU Commission nor any government can pay for all this transformation. But what we need to do, and that's why I talked about a transformational move, we also need us to think out of our box, so that today's steering tools does not allow to show what we are really doing. And this is where we would like to contribute, helping financing the Green Deal, but also helping lots of companies to get to a clearer transformation. Because my worry is, if just a few companies are seen as good and the rest is all a problem, we will not transform anything in this world. We need a system that takes everyone along. And that's, for me, a basis for collaboration.
For example, a good example of collaboration, it has been said also before, is the Battery Alliance, for example, where you put together good company with good technology and an idea of innovation. We have here our champion that spoke before. You put together the commission, you put together national government, you put together university, research center, and all together you have a clear project. You put together also the financial market. He was talking about the EIB, the European Bank of Investment, or he has is in ownership also some banks or some investment banking. So this idea of putting together all the different actors on a pragmatic and concrete project, I think is the best way to do. And for example, I think, we should do something like that, also coming back to what the Commissioner said on hydrogen. Hydrogen is a big thing, but there is still a lot to do to understand how to do it. Hydrogen can come from coal, can come from gas, come from renewables. How you do it in the best way. For example, I think we should do the same thing, a kind of alliance when you talk about, for example, carbon capture and storage of the CO2. This is another big thing. For example, you can do the same thing on forestry. Forestation is another. So on the very important thing, working all together with a clear aim, going, knowing from the very beginning where we want to go. For example, finding the best way and the more efficient way to produce hydrogen and to produce, transfer, and use hydrogen or CCUS. So I think this is the best way to collaborate, and we have already a good example, so let's start from what we already have
Give you
done.
a chance to react in a moment. Let me complete the picture, Fredrik, and particularly in relation to this key question of generating these massive investments. We heard 270 billion a year extra, and that's with the targets for 2030 we have now. It will be more if those targets are increased. What for you is the key to get that collaboration working and create that environment that will drive those investments?
I mean, echoing what Maciej said, I think it's very much about business actually having to lead and take the lead here, and be very proactive in and vocal in saying, what do we need to deliver this? What do we need in terms of regulation? What do we need in terms of less red tape? We at times tend to be a bit reactive. And as you know, business also tend to, when we don't like the way things are run, we move somewhere else. And I think that would be extremely detrimental to this situation, because now we're talking a European perspective, but the climate situation is so much broader than a European situation. And if we end up with just carbon leakage and a lot of business moving somewhere else, we're losing the whole point of what's happening. And also important to keep in mind, I mean, we see great business opportunities. I mean, you saw the Northvolt example. That's not an NGO. It's all about the money. So given the right level playing field, business will deliver. But to your point, I think we have to be a bit more blunt, a bit more direct, because time is shorter this time. So we have to get out of our normal comfort zone and increase the bluntness and directness. This is what we need to get things done.
So it can indeed be a new growth strategy, but only if we address some of these challenges that you're identifying. Commissioner, from your perspective in terms of this collaboration, and we've heard about the Battery Alliance earlier, how do you see that evolving? So really effective partnerships between you and industry, and on this investment question as well, you know, how are we going to drive those investments? This concern that maybe we're not taking a holistic enough view.
Well, that's very true that we need a lot of investments, and we do have concrete plans for achieving our 2030 targets. So all the national governments, they have prepared national energy climate plans, and well, these consist of step-by-step actions, how they will decrease greenhouse gases emissions by 2030, and also the investment needs. So, as we all know, right now our leaders of national governments, they are discussing not this very moment, but well overall next MFF, and this is agreed that it will mainstream the climate needs, so every fourth euro goes to climate targets. But this is definitely not enough. We need good investment tools from banks. That's why it's very welcome that EIB announced that part of it will be climate bank. But even after that, we still need private investments. And I do see that that for every private investor, it is also the way how you will earn your profits in the future. So Emma was mentioning that Battery Alliance is a success story, and we do agree. And because of that, next week when my colleague Thierry Breton will present industrial strategy, then most probably there will be also a very important part dedicated to hydrogen. And we try to, well, use the lessons learned from Battery Alliance to do similar thing with hydrogen, because this is a very storage and energy source that is discussed everywhere. So public acceptance was mentioned here too, and we will not achieve such a big transformation without public acceptance. So that's why for us, Green Deal is also a matter of just transition, not only towards our consumers, but also for our industry, and that's why on the table there is this carbon border mechanism, so that we can convince our partners to follow our lead.
Absolutely, and we'll come back on that
Can I
perception
say
of just...
something?
Yes,
No,
please,
because
Emma.
this is very important, I think. I agree, and as I said, as Eni, we are doing this very bold and very important strategy where we commit. It's not just an ambition, but we commit. But I think a very important thing is, as already been said this morning, before talking about a carbon adjustment tax, I think we should be very important to have a global carbon price. This is key, because if you don't have this clear signal, investment will not come. I want to be very clear on this, and I think the Commission has to work a lot on this, because you should also use all the instruments you have, FTAs, your geopolitical, I think rightly Ursula von der Leyen said that this has to be also a geopolitical commission. For me, geopolitical commission means also to have at the table the most important powerful countries. So, as it has been said, now we count as Europe for 9% of the GHG emission. In 2030, we will be 5%. So we absolutely need to have a carbon price. So without this, I think we are just talking about ambition, but not concrete things.
Saori, you want to come?
Yeah, and building on what Emma said, I think I really appreciate that you do the impact assessment. I think the carbon border tax benefits companies that have less experts. Those who are exporting might have a disadvantage. So you have to look at how big is the company, what are they doing? That's one element. But if I may add another area for collaboration, and you said the sustainability of products and so on could also be a disadvantage. What we see, and I would like to maybe go a little bit in conflict to what you said, when we looked at the 60,000 products we have, those who have a sustainability claim today grow much faster and are on average more profitable. However, and this is where I think we need to collaborate. So I'm not so worried about that this is a strategic, clever move. I fully agree, actually. The challenge will be, how do we transform so many businesses in their product portfolio? And what I'm trying to say, let me give you an example of an industry that is troubled by all kinds of activist initiatives. But if you look at the agricultural sector, 240 applications have been lost due to increased regulations, meaning there is also less and less cash flow to finance the next sustainable environmental products. And the industry is very clear that we have to move towards a much more environmental friendly product portfolio, but we need a transition time. How can we do this in a clever way? Because we need to, invest millions. In our case, it's almost $1 billion R&D funding every year to get there. So this is where I think it's another area which I would like to stress for many companies, how to transform in a portfolio, over time to come to that setup. Yeah?
While we're talking about impact assessments, can I just ask you, Commissioner, the thing probably of most note for people in this room yesterday, we were expecting the climate law proposal, but was the decision not to make a proposal now on new 2030 targets, but to have a comprehensive impact assessment, but nevertheless clear indications that you plan to put it up. It's just a question of how's that going to work? Can you say 2 words about the targets and when we can expect the proposal coming from the impact assessment?
Well, yes, yesterday when we discussed climate law, then it was also promised that all the future regulations that will accompany it will be impact assessed. But what is going on right now, as I mentioned, we are getting from national governments their national energy and climate plans. Yeah. And according to that, we already know what are the, decided actions in energy field and also in broader sense, agriculture, forestry, industry, transport. And after evaluating the current set of measures, we can discuss how we will raise our targets also already for 2030. And in longer terms, there will be necessary dates also after 2030 so that we know that our trajectory is there. And it comes with no surprise that we had a lot of ambition, but there is a gap of delivering. Sure. So that's why we need trajectory.
Emma talked earlier, Maciej, about the need for pragmatism. And one key area, we're talking about increasing the targets overall. But in terms of the different starting points, so different countries have different starting points in this, different industries, as Saori was pointing to the fact that you have to look at this industry by industry. How do you believe the EU should maintain its overall ambition, but be pragmatic in terms of you, Poland, Sweden, starting from different places? How do we, again, get that balance between ambition and realism, do you think?
I think the only way, I'm an engineer.
Yep.
So I was surprised, I'm a Polish, I will not speak about coal. I think it's all those elements, you calculate them. We get back to being blunt and being predictable and being business oriented. We know how much coal we have in Poland and how long we can use it. We know how much green energy and water energy we have in Scandinavian countries and what is the difference between the two countries. I really believe that we should, and I will try to be provocative, we should avoid a kind of national approach to the problem.
Yes.
You know, I'll give you an example. Today, President von der Leyen spoke about the digital common Europe. It will never happen if we follow the disaster of GDPR. It means if we go for the national laws for the given subject. And I would say that the digital Europe will only happen with a kind of federal laws on the digital area. And I believe that the green Europe, sooner or later, should be happening through a kind of federal regulations. It's provocative, but I think it's the only way. If we go country by country, we'll spend 10 years to discuss with my friend about the different starting point between two of our countries, and the commissioner will have to decide between ourselves. So we will lose a lot of energy for this energy. We should really base it on numbers and on facts. And business, we have a big advantage. We're not politicians, we have numbers and facts. So it's the starting points, you can calculate them, and the curves of each country arriving to the target, you can calculate them. And again, 250, most probably, I'm not responsible for it, we will miss it. But let's try to be as close as possible to the targets. Do not comment it. But I really believe that it's everything we can measure. Only if we can measure, we can master, we can manage. And in this area, it's not very different. And one other point, it should be done with as much as possible a kind of federal approach. If we go only with general directives, it will be lost. As the discussions between Poland and Sweden, it will be lost in the translation between
I'll let you comment in a minute on his aside that, we're not going to get there. But Fredrik, do you believe we need to take account of the different starting points, or do you favor this more, let's say, we set the overall target, we know where we're going?
I didn't say that we should not take it into account.
No.
Just take it into account.
Just don't do it in that way. Yeah. Fredrik.
I mean, in that sense, emissions knows no borders, and we're all in different situations, as you describe. And I think it's just to get down doing the job. And if we start setting different levels, saying that this country is done, this is not done, I think we're doing a huge mistake. I think we'll all contribute in different ways. I mean, as an example, Sweden have a different energy infrastructure, but then again, we can contribute on the technology side, etc. So again, 30 years might seem an extremely long time period. I think in this context, it's extremely short. So it's you just get to.
But it does also link to the public acceptance point as well, because some regions, not just countries, regions will be hit much harder by this transformation, hence the Just Transition Fund. Emma.
Yeah, well, as you know, for example, well, I'm Italian, but so as you know, that in terms of circular economy, renewables, we are, in a good position. So, but I think that this transition fund has a sense. I mean, because I think when you start from different points, recognizing that we all have to get to a certain point, helping, in my opinion, and supporting who has to make, a longer journey because of, past different choices, is something which is fair, and this is very linked to the fact that then at the end we need a social acceptance. Yeah. So I think that where you need to make a big and bold transformation, of course, you will lose some jobs. We have to say this very clearly. Then probably, I'm sure you will create new jobs.
But they might not be in the same places as you lost
the same place or at the same time. So a Just Transition Fund, in my opinion, is something where also here you have to be very transparent. because in a certain sense it's not fair that all the money goes to the one who didn't make their jobs at home. So you have to, to strike a good balance between the different things. But I think for, the social acceptance, a good and transparent transition fund is something which is
We'll come back on
makes
the
sense.
social, the public acceptance, but in terms of this different starting points, did you want to, Saori, and then the Commissioner, and then I'm coming out to all of you.
Yeah, I wanted to make one point. First of all, the fact that we have this initiative is not just because politicians thought about it. We have to be aware there is public societal expectation because of lost trust, not achieving, targets that we all are responsible for. And that's what I would like to see first. So let's not talk about the EU Commission or something. What is at stake for me is the public trust in business and politicians. And this is what unites us, number one. If we talk about 250, let me make it very concrete. We are working towards that target because there is an obligation by the Paris Climate Protocol.
Yep.
And let me explain to you what the real challenges are very shortly. Yeah, because I think we have to be tangible here. And here I fully agree with what you said, based on facts. We have, for example, in the last 10 years, halved the CO2 emission. But a lot of in our industry have a plateau because steel is in the ground. And this is the limiting factor. So we have to change the total technology grid in the entire industry. And this is what takes 8 years at least of R&D to change the whole processes. And even if we then achieve this, the zero is very difficult to achieve technically. So then we have to talk about additional tools, which we were reluctant. So I just want to put it on facts. So what I'm trying to say is, I think we have to think beyond, or as Oren Heron once said, it's time, that because the electrical light would never have been invented if we would have continued to work on a concept of a candle. Yeah. So this is the move we have to make.
Commissioner, and then I'm coming out to the room.
Well, yes, I wanted to to say that, yes, starting point for every member state is different, and we are taking it into account. So 2030 targets, they are unique for every member state. And this is sovereign right of the member state to decide what their energy mix is. So we do have countries who have decided that they will phase out nuclear, and we do have member states who have started discussions to build their first ever nuclear. We have countries who have decided that they will phase out coal or lignite and replace it with natural gas. And we have countries who have decided that they will phase out natural gas and replace it with renewables. What we can do help building interconnectors so that they will accommodate more green energy, and heavily invest in research and innovation, because we do have some innovative solutions already that are not market compatible, like CCS or hydrogen. And then we have some that theoretically are there but not existing yet, like plasma. But lots of countries, us, European Union, together with Japan, China, Russia, and United States, and India are working to create this new solution, and then everything is different than it is now.
Thank you. Marcus.
Well, thank you, Jacki. Fredrik, you've alluded to carbon leakage, and I think this is an important point. I mean, we very much support the Green Deal. There is opportunities, and there's super opportunities for front runners. This is great. But there's not only front runners, there's also our classical industries, and a lot of the success will come from the transformation of the classical industries. Saori has alluded to this. So now it's about, Emma talked about the global market, global carbon price. This is certainly great, and the level playing field would be excellent, but we won't have it in the next years. So the question is, how until then do we protect our industries against unfair competition in order to avoid this carbon leakage, investment leakage? And of course, we had a message on the carbon border tax adjustment. This is a very interesting tool, can help in many cases. We are looking into it, but it's not a silver bullet. It's very clear that we'll need more. We need a whole toolbox in order to avoid this. And it's my question to the Commissioner, how do we achieve this?
Hang on just 1 second. I'm going to see if there are any other questions in the interest of using time. Did you want to come back? Go on. Quick one if you would.
Well, I would like to commend the Commissioner, because she is the only one in this panel who rightfully talks about a carbon border adjustment mechanism. This is your protection industry. Can you please stop using the word tax? Because Mr. Trump will get a heart attack, and you will not get it through WTO. So please follow the Commissioner. It's the border carbon adjustment mechanism, not a tax.
Do you think that's a distinction that Mr. Trump will understand? I'm just no. Please, sir.
Thank you. I'm coming from the transport industry. It was never mentioned, the transport industry, in the morning. But I think we had to think about, and I have two questions. First of all, please take into consideration also what was mentioned several times here. With the industry, we cannot jump to 2050. We had to make roadmaps for the transition movement. That is an important thing. And the second point, what is your opinion on the energy? We will have also, in our opinion, in the year 2050, imports of maybe, hopefully, CO2 neutral energy, I would say. What is your opinion on this one? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So, Commissioner, to Marcus's question, and you said earlier we have to step up a gear in terms of our external relations, but he's saying, while we're doing that, what do we do in the meantime? Your reaction?
Well, in the meantime, we are using all the tools that we do have, and it was very correctly mentioned that our President Ursula von der Leyen has stated that we are geopolitical commission. That means we have lots of good dialogues in the field of energy. I think even with those countries that we don't have any other dialogues existing right now. About this carbon border mechanism, yes, it has to be WTO rules compatible. And this is a very good example of how this commission, the new commission that started only in December, will work in collegial way, so not in silos. Because from our side, there is a leading role for Commissioner Gentiloni. Then, of course, Commissioner Hogan, responsible for trade, but me too, because we are talking about different sectors, and some of the sectors are very closely connected with energy. So I think that this is a work that we are doing from the very first day, trying to protect our competitiveness, but at the same time secure energy, so that there is a that added to the affordability, there is also security of supply.
Yep.
And good partnership, because sometimes you achieve more if you negotiate, and this has been European strength that we are willing and able to negotiate with our partners.
Can I
Quick ones, if you would, because I want to come back to public
just
acceptance.
very quickly to Marcus. I think you're right, and probably we will not have the carbon prices immediately. So I think in the meantime, I think for some very exposed companies and industry, probably we need some additional free allowances. We have to say that. And probably I agree, a border, how do you say, adjustment mechanism. Which is a tax anyway, in my opinion. But I think in the short time could be a way to have all the other on the table.
Any other quick reactions? There was also the question about transport.
I know we shouldn't use the T word, but I think we really need a clear price on CO2.
Yeah.
I would never propose a European T word, but maybe when we look at it on a national level, I think we could benefit from actually setting a minimum level, minimum price level on CO2. So we clarify that, so we at least can straighten that out on the European level. And I think the ETS are working. And you saw Pekka Lundmark before here saying that his Christmas wish would be an ETS for the whole world. And hopefully we'll get there. But that will take time.
Hang on.
Exactly.
Hang on. Sorry. Any other quick reactions on that? Can we move then? Can you pick up on this point? Because I think it was you, Saori, talking about roadmaps and this point from transport about we have to have intermediate steps to get there. We can't do it.
Yeah.
Just a quick word on that, if you
No,
would.
I just fully, that was my point. I think there's so many industries here in the room. And my point is, I think a lot of industries, from what I know, are very open for dialogue because we want to take our responsibility very serious. And I can only invite that we jointly look industry by industry what is needed in order to get this done in a solid way. We need a little bit of a planning stability, and that's an open invitation to the EU Commission, because we are all aware, Europe, it's us. And if we do this, we need to know infrastructure, investment need, but we will do our part, and there's a lot of commitment that I heard so far. Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
On the public, sorry to hurry you, but when Commissioner Gentiloni arrives, he's on
here.
a tight schedule.
He's here.
There he is. But I just want on public acceptance. And we've seen the Gilets jaunes backlash. It started in this area, precisely with a lack of public understanding of what needs to be done. Any thoughts, addition to the just transition mechanism, any thoughts on how we make sure we bring the public along? Quick ideas. Anybody got a thought here? Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Maciej.
I will start with Poland. I will surprise you again. Means in Poland you don't have millions of people on the streets asking the mining industry to remain. So it's obvious. And if you ask people, people obviously want the Green Deal. We have the hottest winter in Poland since ever we measured those temperatures. It's I would say, powering machine of the social
making
support.
its own case right now.
So basically, yeah, the only thing we need again, but it's the same for the European, for the maps. We need arguments, tangible arguments, to fight against the populism, because you have a bit of this, of the populism saying billions of jobs will be destroyed, etc. But the arguments are there, so I don't really think that this is such a big issue. The young generations, they're already buying in.
One sentence, Emma, and then Saori, and then I'm going to ask you.
Well,
to conclude.
I think people understand that the climate change is there. We have to also, companies have to take responsibility, but we also have to make people understand that also the way they consume has to change, and probably, and on the other hand, since the most decarbonized product can cost more, we all have to be very cost efficient. Otherwise, people will not accept to pay more.
Saori.
I think we live in a time where scientific knowledge is very slow in transportation and emotion is very fast.
Yeah.
And I believe it's our obligation that we work on tangible action and solution mode. And I think the best way to get the public acceptance, if we speak one voice on key priorities that we agree upon between the EU Commission and economy, to make a joint pledge for change.
Which brings us back to our collaboration point. We are almost out of time, but I just want to come along the line, and I want to do what I did with our panel this morning, and I want to ask you to really identify what you want from each other. So, Maciej, I'll start with you on this question. If you were in the Commission's shoes for one day, and accepting that this is a multifaceted challenge, but had to do something to really make sure that we address this, that we live up to that level of ambition, but we do it in the right way that really enables business to make the business case, to drive this change. What for you would you do with your one day? It's basically, what do you want from the Commissioner, but I'm putting it more subtly. What would you do if you were her for a day?
Well, I would spend it here, because we have the majority of the European businesses in the room. So eventually not in the panel mode, more collecting the information. I would say, guys and ladies, what is harming you the most in the current approach we are proposing? That would be one. And if I can, because I may not have a second chance, I will have my activist call. It's if we could lower the temperature in this room by 5 degrees, we'll kill less panelists and we'll kill less the planet. But that's the end of my...
I have to apologize, ladies and gentlemen, apparently, because as you know, we're sort of indoors but outdoors. If we turn the heating down or off, it will go off completely, and within 10 minutes you'll all freeze to death. So we're either very warm or very cold, and we've opted for very warm. Fredrik.
I would spend all my day creating a level playing field, because creating a level playing field is the only chance of stopping the carbon leakage. And I think the carbon leakage in itself would lead to probably the best tech companies that could make the difference would tend to leave Europe, and that's the worst case scenario. So
that's where you would
keep
focus.
the innovation and the companies still in Europe.
Emma, what would your
I say it
focus
again.
be?
I will call a table with Mr. Trump, with the Chinese president, and I will add Mr. Modi, because India is another very important part of CO2 emission, together here to say, guys, we have all to take responsibility for the next generation.
Saori.
I would take the key priorities of the Green Deal and install advisory boards with representative industry players that are in charge of collecting the necessary information to make this deal a big success story.
Thank you very much. And Commissioner, to turn it round, this is essentially what do you want from them? So if you were the CEO, a captain of industry for a day, and you could do only one thing to make sure that European industry really rises to this challenge and plays its role in the way we want and need it to, what would you do?
Well, most probably I would support the people who are working in R&D, research and innovation department, because well, smart technologies, they are well, the way for growth for both single enterprise and for our economy.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, will you join me in thanking our panel very much, particularly Commissioner. It's been great to have you with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You may return to the anonymity of the audience. So thank you very much to you all for a very stimulating conversation. This one, as they say, ladies and gentlemen, will run and run. Much more to discuss over the coming weeks and months, of course.